The World Cup is over, but now is the moment when everything finally comes to light. It is the episode that closes the circle started during the opening days of the tournament, exposing the rigged referee selections and systemic influence peddling that FIFA quietly built into the 2026 World Cup. This system just faced its most definitive and devastating institutional reckoning, a direct blow to those who built and maintained it for weeks. The Independent Ethics Committee of FIFA has acted on its own initiative. They moved with the urgency demanded by the overwhelming evidence of the last few hours, showing the sheer force required to address such serious actions. Gian Infantino has officially lost his executive power for good. He will never run another World Cup, and the Argentine Association has just received the most historic and detailed disciplinary file that any national federation has ever faced from any FIFA governing body in the entire history of soccer. It centers on two cases. First is the web of shared interests between outgoing FIFA leaders and the Argentine Federation. Ethics investigators documented this link with absolute precision, tracking the heavy trail of evidence built up over weeks during this tournament. The second is the physical clash, where Leandro Paredes targeted Gavi and Eric García right during the Spanish celebrations at the final whistle of the World Cup. Two cases, a double-fronted scandal that our reports detailed with absolute rigor. Today, those facts have forced official, institutional consequences straight from the offices of the very governing body that caused them. And right in the middle of it all came the most painful, unexpected blow. The one that hurts the soccer world deeper than any other consequence of this entire scandal. Leo Messi has officially confirmed his permanent retirement from the Argentine national team. For 39 years, he proved that soccer is indeed the world's absolute greatest sport. A player whose final match in the Albiceleste jersey was the final of the most controversial tournament in history against Spain. The captain who, on the hardest night of his career, had the class to distance himself from the violent antics of his teammates with the grace of the truly great. That giant has walked away from his country's national team. And the way he left, right in the middle of the most severe institutional scandal in organized soccer history, with the AFA investigation hanging in the background, and the pain of losing the most important final of his life still very fresh, feels like the most bitter and unfair departure any soccer legend has ever endured in the history of the sport. Stick around until the very end, because we are delivering the most complete analysis of the final chapter in the most explosive tournament in soccer history. By the time this ends, you will understand everything perfectly. Let's look at the facts, because the facts in this case are so specific, so heavy with historical consequences, and so revealing of what this tournament actually was, that we must break them down one by one with absolute rigor. Let's start with the Ethics Committee decision, because to truly grasp the scale of what they just did, you must first understand what FIFA's Ethics Committee actually is, and what it means for them to intervene on their own initiative right after the year's biggest final. The FIFA Ethics Committee is the internal branch of the body that manages global soccer, charged with investigating and penalizing any behavior by FIFA members that violates the organization's official code of ethics. Officially, it is designed to be completely independent from FIFA's executive leadership, which in theory shields it from the heavy pressure that executive leadership typically exerts on any department that depends on them. In practice, that independence has always been highly debatable. Still, the committee took down Blatter. They went after Platini, and their motivation has historically depended on the amount of outside pressure from media, governments, or fans, forcing the organization to make its internal control structures actually look like they worked. Today, the Ethics Committee acted directly against Gian Infantino and the Argentine Football Association. And the reason why they intervened on their own, without waiting for any official, formal complaint, is that during the final weeks of this tournament, no committee member could keep looking away without their silence turning into direct complicity with the massive trail of documented evidence. The pressure of the evidence was finally enough. This system of favoritism grew so glaringly obvious, so detailed and well documented, that the committee had no choice but to step in. Otherwise, their silence would have triggered the ultimate institutional crisis for soccer's governing body. They acted, and what that decision triggers in terms of massive fallout, what this means for Infantino and Argentina, is exactly what we are going to lay out with absolute precision. This is only the beginning, but before we get into the grim details of these three massive episodes, we must first look at the entire picture of what this tournament has been. Because we actually started tracking this blatant favoritism in its first weeks, using that leaked audio from that Dallas VAR room, which fully exposed the backroom chaos during the match between Mexico and England with the referees. We watched referees get expelled in emergency midnight press releases, saw 5 different quarterfinal scandals handled in a single night, and witnessed those 5 completely ridiculous rules put in place for the final. Plus the appointment of Fagani, Paredes attacking players on the pitch, and Infantino's strange words during the medal ceremony. For weeks, we were the ones telling these stories with the raw honesty and detail the facts demanded. An honesty that mainstream media simply couldn't afford because their massive corporate sponsors tied their hands, preventing them from publishing what their own reporters knew. Today, all that reporting gets its most official and undeniable validation. The Ethics Committee has finally taken action, and the facts we documented are the exact same facts they uncovered in their official investigation. And the harsh consequences hitting them now are exactly what that system deserved since the very first day of this tournament. The first charge in the disciplinary case against Argentina is the one we have exposed since our very first videos, the cozy web of interests between FIFA's outgoing leadership and the Argentine Federation, not as some abstract theory, but as the concrete reality the Ethics Committee has uncovered in its official investigation. The corrupt ties between Infantino and the AFA, which during the tournament became favorable refereeing decisions for Argentina in the most crucial moments of the knockout stages that Scaloni's squad played. Take that leaked audio out of Dallas, which completely documented the frantic conversations inside the VAR room during the high-stakes matchup between Mexico and England. The highly suspicious referee decisions in the Argentina versus Switzerland quarterfinal, including that forced second yellow card given to the Swiss player, which by the rules, VAR was not even allowed to review, plus that Enzo Fernandez goal, which escaped the rigorous review required by the rules. The mountain of evidence we tracked week after week finally landed on the desk of the Ethics Committee, carrying evidence so overwhelming that no governing body trying to save its credibility could ignore it. And the committee acted on the first charge, the web of backroom deals, the deep influence peddling that turned refereeing in the world's biggest tournament into a tool for the political and business interests of those in charge. The second charge is something the global broadcast cameras caught with perfect clarity, the kind of absolute proof you only get when the biggest game of the year is filmed from every single angle. We are talking about Leandro Paredes attacking Gavi and Eric García right as Spain celebrated at the final whistle. Those exact moments from our previous video, the blindside hits, the shoving and pushing, while the champions were celebrating. A display of behavior that the rulebook only defines in one way, violent and unsportsmanlike conduct. FIFA had already set a clear precedent by handing 10-game bans to Mbappe and Bellingham. The Ethics Committee had to show the same consistency with Paredes, making his actions the second charge in the investigation against the AFA, with massive consequences, both sporting and financial, that will hang over the Argentine Federation for months and years following this tournament. But do you know what the most unbelievable part is? What happens next? Before we detail the specific hits to Argentina and Infantino, we must understand what this file actually means for the AFA in the real world. Because this is not just some piece of paper, it's the start of a process that will bring heavy financial, sporting, and institutional damage to Argentina for months or even years. Economically, we are talking about a multi-million-dollar penalty. The exact figures have not been officially confirmed just yet, but sources close to the committee whisper about a fine so massive that compared to previous FIFA penalties, it would go down as the largest financial hit in the entire history of South American soccer. On the sporting side, this suspension from official matches with the exact time frame still being worked out by the committee could completely derail their qualifying run for the next World Cup, which means Argentina, the very team FIFA seemingly handpicked to win this entire tournament, could find themselves banned from qualifying for the next World Cup, a direct result of the crooked system FIFA built to help them in the first place. There is a deeply poetic kind of irony when you look at it closely, because the absolute biggest joke in this entire investigation is that the organization launching it is FIFA itself, the exact same governing body whose outgoing leaders engineered the very favoritism being detailed here. The same group that drew up those 5 ridiculous rules for the final. The same organization that put Fagani in charge of refereeing, fully aware of his tournament track record, and the very institution whose president apologized to Messi on the podium for failing to deliver the trophy they had literally designed for him to hoist. Now, that same body is launching the most unprecedented disciplinary investigation any soccer federation has ever faced. The irony is so thick it feels scripted, but it is not a script. It is just how bureaucracy works when a massive scandal finally becomes too loud to ignore. They desperately need a scapegoat to take all the public heat, even if that scapegoat is actually a monster created by the very organization doing the punishing. FIFA is punishing Argentina for a system that FIFA itself built. That is the clear message written between the lines here, once you strip away the politics and look closely at the facts. Yet, this reality does not get Argentina off the hook for their own actions. Paredes physically attacked Gavi and Eric García. The Argentine Football Association gladly benefited from referee calls that FIFA's system encouraged. Those actions are very real, even if the punishing body helped create the environment for them. True accountability does not require the prosecutor to be innocent, it just requires the facts to be true. And they are. Infantino's downfall is the quickest, most visible move the organization can make right now to quiet the crowd, especially since his formal removal happened weeks ago, leaving this as the total stripping of any remaining executive power. This comes alongside massive criminal and financial investigations that, over the coming weeks, will determine if the former president's actions cross the line from standard rule-breaking into actual criminal charges. He will never run another World Cup. That part is absolutely set in stone. And if criminal investigators prove what the early evidence strongly points to, Infantino is likely facing a legal reality far worse than the simple ethics bans handed down this week. Then, there is Messi. The final chapter of his story in the Argentina jersey is easily the most painful, heartbreaking saga of this entire tournament. It is not that his retirement is shocking, especially when you consider he is 39, and this final represented his absolute last shot at the ultimate prize, to win what no other player in history has ever won, a third World Cup. It would have capped off the most incredible career any player has ever put together in the history of the sport, but because the way this exit is happening is incredibly unfair, poisoned by political drama, in a way we have never seen for a departing legend in modern sports history. Messi is not leaving with the trophy, or with the clean, heroic farewell his 39 years of greatness deserved. Instead, he departs amid massive federal investigations and the shadow of his teammates launching violent field attacks. He leaves with Infantino's bizarre apology serving as proof that even a system rigged in his favor was not enough to secure the win. He walks away with the heavy burden of knowing that on the biggest night of his life, the final score did not reflect the beautiful game he wanted to play. Yet the soccer world will always remember his magic, like that brilliant pass to Lautaro in the semi-final, the clinical assist Argentina desperately needed, representing the single greatest play a 39-year-old has ever made in any World Cup semi-final in soccer history. Messi exploded in the dressing room against Enzo and the entire team. He openly distanced himself from Paredes' violent antics in the post-match interviews. Now, Messi is walking away from Argentina in the shadow of the biggest political scandal of his entire career. That is the final exit history has dealt to the greatest player to ever touch a soccer ball. Not the farewell he deserved, but the one this broken system created. Messi's explanation for his decision fit perfectly with everything he said and did in the hours following the final. He just couldn't remain part of a national team whose institutional image was being shredded by scandal. He refused to let his name stay tied to a structure that the ethics committee confirmed was operating in ways he could never support. That final against Spain was, officially, the final match of his entire career in the Argentina jersey. 39 years old, 4 World Cups, 1 World Cup in 2022, 2 heartbreaking losses before that, and the 2026 final, as an unwanted but inevitable farewell. Messi is leaving Argentina. Global soccer is mourning with the deep sadness of knowing something has been lost that will never come back. And this coverage, which spent weeks documenting the system that rigged the stage against Messi, forcing him out of the Albiceleste in the most unfair way, bids him farewell with the respect that 39 years of absolute greatness deserve, and with the honest outrage of knowing the farewell he got was nowhere near what his legendary career actually deserved. It was the ending, a broken system built for him without his knowledge, his approval, or his consent. And you, fans who have followed this from the stands for years, who tune in every single week, because you know this is where we expose the truths that corporate mainstream media, with all their financial ties, never dare to touch. You've followed the entire arc of this tournament right here with us, from those first leaked audios in a Dallas bar, all the way to Messi's sudden retirement, and the historic case opened against the AFA, back when we warned that the favoritism baked into this tournament was going to be exposed by the very people running it, because the scandal grew too massive for them to quiet down. You told us our analysis was spot on. You were right every single time. And today, with Infantino out, Argentina facing sanctions, and Messi saying goodbye to the Albiceleste, the truth hits with the brutal force only the beautiful game can deliver. Let's close with 3 final points. First, The Ethics Committee's case against Argentina and the stripping of Infantino's executive power are the most specific, historic, and significant consequences any World Cup has ever produced in the days following a final in the history of organized soccer. Not because this is the first institutional fallout from a soccer scandal. FIFA has a long history of sweeping its own scandals under the rug through internal discipline, but because the sheer mountain of evidence we documented week after week during this tournament, with the concrete proof of leaked audios, questionable refereeing, and post-game brawls, makes this case the most thoroughly documented, the most public, and the most undeniable investigation FIFA has ever had to face in its entire history. Second, the sheer irony of FIFA punishing Argentina for a system that FIFA itself built is FIFA is punishing exactly what they created with their own decisions, and that fact, instead of letting Argentina off the hook for their own actions on and off the pitch, proves that the corrupt system engineered at the very highest levels of this tournament compromised both sides of this investigation with the exact same level of rot and decay. Every single player in this scandal bears a share of the blame, and the Ethics Committee must hold them all to the exact same standard. Third, Messi walking away from Argentina is the most unjust, bitter farewell, and most deeply poisoned exit any sporting legend has ever endured in the history of soccer. Not because Messi made the wrong choice given the hand he was dealt and what his integrity demanded of him, but because the situation that forced his hand was entirely manufactured by a system running in his name without his consent. And on the biggest night of his career, that corrupt system could not even deliver the trophy it had promised him. Messi deserved a different ending. The sport owed him so much more, and that remains the most bitter, completely unnecessary, and deeply painful legacy of this entire tournament for the greatest player to ever live. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Does FIFA have any real credibility punishing Argentina when they built this system themselves? Is Messi's abrupt retirement the absolute most unfair consequence of this entire tournament scandal? Can Argentina actually build a whole new national team project without Messi, the one man who defined Argentine soccer for over a generation? I want to hear your thoughts on this. We build this space together. People who know soccer deserves real, unfiltered honesty. If you made it this far, it is because you know what this place is all about. The spot where we say what mainstream media, with all their corporate sponsors, would never dare to touch. There are no powerful groups to protect here, and no legends we will ignore when the system around them triggers issues that the soccer world needs to see clearly. We bring the raw honesty you expect from us. Just raw soccer, honest and unfiltered. If this video matters to you, share it right now, do not even hesitate. Think of the Spanish fans seeing how the system, which tried to stop his team from winning the World Cup, is now being torn down by FIFA's own internal investigators. They know Ferran Torres scoring in minute 110 was huge, way more significant, and historically valuable than that 1-0 score shows. And think of the Argentine watching Messi walk away from the national team right during the biggest institutional scandal in his country's soccer history. They need to figure out if Messi's choice is right under these conditions. Does Argentina still need him to rebuild after the worst institutional night of their recent history? And think of the global soccer fan, in any corner of the map, watching the end of the most explosive tournament ever, needing to understand honestly if what the FIFA Ethics Committee did today is the real, committed start of a deep overhaul, or is it just a tiny, empty gesture forced by this massive scandal, completely lacking real structural changes? Drop a like if you think FIFA needs to go way beyond the Argentina investigation and completely reform the broken system this tournament has exposed to the world. And subscribe right now if you have not yet, and hit that notification bell. The deep analysis of what comes next in world soccer after this insane tournament, the new FIFA reforms, Argentina's future without Messi, and that crazy summer transfer market already cooking in major European club offices, it is all coming right here on this channel. In the next video, I am bringing you the exclusive reactions from the major global federation, the FIFA investigation against Argentina, and the removal of Infantino's executive power. We have the first updates on the internal reforms FIFA promised to start, and what Messi's retirement really means for Argentina. Who can possibly step up and fill the leadership void left by the greatest captain in their history? You will not find this information anywhere else, only here, completely raw, with zero compromise and no fear of saying what everyone else is hiding. Infantino, stripped of executive power, facing open criminal investigations. Argentina hit with the most historic case FIFA's ever launched in South American soccer history. Messi permanently retired from the national team in the bitterest exit imaginable for a legend. And Spain, two-time world champions of the most massive, explosive, and controversial tournament in soccer history.